It's time to use the new nutmeg grater. Here, let's go. Oh, come on. It'll work. Hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Sometimes you gotta do things with it. Wow. Welcome to the Nutmeg Tavern. We are live, and I'm your host, John Townsend. And we're going to be talking fun 18th century stuff today. Sit back, relax, find a seat, get a drink. It's Friday. It's time to kick back a little bit. The weekend's almost here, and I'm ready to relax. Actually, I got lots of hard work to do on Saturday. What kind of a... Anyway, I'm going to skip over that. Work on the weekend. That's Ryan back there.
Hi. It's good to be here. Thanks for joining us.
That was Ryan. I was going to say something about pineapples, but I'm not. On the other side of the time vortex, making all things modern happen, because we can't do that kind of stuff here in the 18th century, is Aaron.
Hey, happy Friday, everyone. Thank you for being here.
I don't know where that guy is at. He's located at, but it's like it's all jiggly and fuzzy and everything.
Posters for really good movies hanging out where I'm at.
That does remind me, if you are a Townsends Plus person or Patreon, check out the newest video or the newest post on Patreon and on Townsends Plus. Where can they find that one on Townsends Plus?
Go to the newest videos tab or the Townsends update tab.
There you go.
There'll be something waiting for you.
Right, so check that out. A lot of people have been asking about that little thing, so check that out. Today...
Asking about what little thing?
The secret thing that's just for
didn't-
Patreon and Townsends Plus.
I didn't know it was a secret. Okay. Cool.
Cool.
Gosh, it's like he doesn't know what's going on
stop.
here.
Let's move on.
I don't remember ever really talking about
We're
it.
moving on.
Me neither.
We're moving on.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, I was stunned. I was completely stunned by the fact that YouTube and everyone on YouTube apparently was excited about dyeing things in walnuts. I mean, I never. Sometimes those really catch me, by surprise. It's like, hey, I'm gonna bake this onion, and then, half the internet says baked onion. That's the best thing ever. Or I've always wanted to dye things in walnut. So thank you for checking out the walnut dye video. If you did, and if you haven't, check it out, because it's lots of fun, and we dye things with walnuts. Did you guys have any comments about that?
About dyeing things with walnuts?
Yeah. Nope.
Thanks for watching.
I'm
Thanks
not
for watching the
surprised
video.
that our folks were excited about it. Thank you guys for watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing, I'll share something real quick before we get started, if anyone cares. Thanks for everyone who watched last week's live stream with Josh and the zombie video.
Yeah.
If you watch that live stream, you will have noticed in the lower left-hand side of the screen, there was a jack-o'-lantern. And I just removed that jack-o'-lantern today.
Thank goodness.
And there is a funk in this room that might be here forever. because we
Let me
forgot
tell
to
you,
remove the
I came in
jack-o'-lantern.
earlier to get ready. It's like, what is going? I'm sniffing all over, thinking there's like a dead animal or something. It was that thing.
I thought it was the brew we made, so I went and scrubbed out the cauldron, and then it was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Aaron. Nobody thought about that pumpkin until...
To be fair, I didn't either.
We kind of shut the doors of the Nutmeg Tavern, and we don't return until it's time to invite you all in.
That's the problem of having to live stream Friday at 4. Because, if we get done with it at 5 o'clock, we just slam the door and get out. We're just so gone. And things can get rank in here when nobody's paying attention.
Right.
So,
can you imagine the excitement in John's heart and my heart when it's like, we don't have to see Aaron for 2 days.
hey, now.
And then we slam the door and we leave.
That wasn't kind.
What was that comment? I didn't like
That was out of left field.
Let's get into some super chats real quick because they're rolling in.
Yay!
We got Magic Lars 15. Happy Friday! What was it like, or how was it having Joe Pera on set?
I'll let Aaron talk.
Oh, it was awesome. He was great to work with. It was a pleasure, and hopefully we can work with him again.
On that note,
Yes, on that note.
keep your eyes peeled. Go ahead, John.
No, yeah, you will find very soon. If you're a Joe Pera fan, just keep watching the channel and you'll see something come out soon.
Yeah.
Because we were able to shoot more than one thing with Joe when he was here. So,
Yeah, Joe, that was probably one of the coolest things about having him here. He was down to work, and he was.
Yeah.
We can work at kind of a pace that that can be off-putting if we're not careful, because we're used to it, and other folks aren't used to going at the speed that we do. And he was for it, so it was great.
And I'm pretty sure the new season of his show comes out November 7th, I believe.
Is it 7th? I thought it was.
Yeah.
Adult Swim says that.
Right, and they had a screening. He said that the screenings, the stuff that they've done has gone really well. So you guys make sure to watch that. He's really excited about it.
Yeah.
James Ellsworth. Yeah. Ryan, great Townsends Plus unpacking the pantry video today. When will you make a dish using the product? Oh, okay. So there was a new unpacking the pantry video that went out on Townsends Plus, and it was on salt pork. So if you guys are on Townsends Plus and you haven't seen that yet, go watch it. And that is it was actually made for a future video on YouTube. So it will be a little while before we see that, but it's coming up. We've got Jara. What does nutmeg taste like? John, you're the only one who can answer this.
It's really, really good. No, one of the neat things about nutmeg is that it is it's an aromatic, so it isn't as much about flavor as it is about scent that comes in. So while it does have a nice, fun, earthy kind of subtle flavor, it does have some wonderful aromatics. It's one of the things that gets kind of replaced. One of the reasons why nutmeg kind of disappears is because vanilla comes in and replaces it. Because vanilla, again, is a very aromatic thing, not as much a flavor thing. We're kind of, we kind of grab those two things and put them together, but a lot of flavor is in the aroma of a food. So both nutmeg, vanilla bring in this wonderful aroma. They're both kind of earthy in their flavor, yeah. So that's probably as close as I can get to telling you what nutmeg is like.
Somebody in the chat's wondering if you would ever consider naming something like special, like a child, after nutmeg.
No,
No,
I wouldn't. I mean, nutmeg is so special all by itself. So why would you want to saddle someone with that?
Dustin Williams, when will the Savoring the Past blog be updated again?
Yeah.
I would not hold your breath on that.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard to, as we build and experiment particular things, it can be hard we have to at times say, well, if we're going to do this new thing, we have to put less energy in some other thing. And the Savoring the Past blog is one of those items where we have to decide where our energies are going to go. So we haven't been able to apply much energy to that, even though it's a really fun resource. Something like Sifting the Past, the picture blog. Again, we've been talking about that recently because we've been doing a lot of picture studies, but whoa, who are we going to task? What are we going to take away so that we can put energy to that? Unfortunately, it's hard for us to do that right now.
Yeah. Yep. Moving on. So we've got a new member on Townsends Plus, or no, I'm sorry, on YouTube.
YouTube channel.
Aaron, can you talk about YouTube membership real quick?
Yeah. YouTube membership. There's a button by the like button that says join. You can join and you get custom emojis. You get a badge by your name. It's just a really fun way to kind of support what we do.
Abon3601 is in Super Chat. Are you planning on coming to the Genesee Country Village Museum anytime soon? I live close by and I love it there.
We don't currently have any trips on the schedule, but who knows? We can plan things out in the deep future, and then other times it's sort of like, hey, let's do this, and we just do it. So you never know.
And I think that covers everything that I need to catch up on right now. Somebody in the chat is asking about canning and salting episodes. So you'll want to watch salt pork and potted beef and potted salmon. Those are the quick ones to go to.
Right.
What else do you have as far as meat preservation, John?
There's a salted green bean episode. Wow, those were salty. There's some preserving in sugars. That's there. So there's a couple of different ones, and there's the one we did in the cabin where we talked about just preserving things for the winter. We talked about several different things. There's drying. I don't know that we've done any episodes on drying, but we should. So, yeah, there's definitely some preservation ones, and I'm undoubtedly missing some.
Aaron, isn't there a preservation playlist?
There probably is.
Okay.
On YouTube.
I feel
We've
like
done
there
so
was.
many things over so long a time period that
We were just talking today or the other day about, I don't even remember being there, but I filmed it.
Yeah,
Just
sauerkraut
do so
is
much.
another one of those
Yeah.
similar ones. That's a food preservation method. The pickling. There's some other pickling and pickled eggs. There's the egg preservation episode. So with that, there's a lot.
This is an interesting comment. Can you please make a video on how to sharpen old tools, specifically for the wood lathe? I'm trying to work on a very, very old wood lathe and can't figure out how to sharpen the tool properly. Thank you.
Yeah, so the hand tool.
I think that's a neat idea. We were just
Yeah.
kind of talking about other types of videos that are more just like basic skill videos that we could do, and that fits into that category well.
Yeah.
All right, John, take her away.
Yeah, so topic for today is the making of tea. So we're gonna only, we think about teapots, for making tea, but tea starts to be very, very popular in the 17th century in England, and of course that moves into all of Europe and North America. And the wares that it takes to make tea become popular. This whole sort of, I need equipment to do this new fancy thing. And there's a million super cool teapots. Maybe we'll do a whole live stream on teapots in the future because there's a lot of neat ones. But this live stream, we're just going to be going through images, museum images of teapot items from the let's say early 18th century through the very early 19th century time period, because tea is just fun stuff.
Ready?
Yeah. So we have teapots for brewing tea, but we have tea kettles for heating the water up to make tea. Can't do it both in the same vessel. No, we have to have two different things, one for heating, one for brewing. This is a cast iron teapot or tea kettle for boiling the water. And this, if you've ever cast things in cast iron or cast anything in sand, this is a sand cast item from this time period, probably, mid to late 18th century, 1770s to about 1800. Making a casting, if you've tried to get castings done, here in the 21st century, we do a lot of cast iron casting, but the casting done in the 18th century is so much thinner and refined, so much more difficult to do, that when I look at a piece like this, I'm amazed. If I wanted this piece made currently, I don't care where in the world, it would be a very, very pricey casting because it's so thin-walled that a lot of the pieces would be just thrown out. They would be waste. So we want to mechanize everything, make it, very inexpensive. In the time period, this would have been a very expensive piece, and today it would be incredibly expensive to make. We look at it and say, it's just an antique, some old pot, cast iron thing. This is fine work. That especially that little spout design is very difficult to pull off. Speaking of ultra fine pieces, this is an early silver tea kettle made in, so let's say 1710, 1720, 1730, made in North America. So yeah, we're making nice things in North America in the time period. Somebody's finally crafting these pieces, and this again would be super high end, being made in silver, and a design like this is going to be very expensive to produce. And look at the workmanship, that little, cast, I don't know, bird head, and the engraving work and the chasing work that's done on this thing is just beautiful, especially for this early time period, 1710, 1720. We can tell this is fairly early in our 18th century time period by the decorative work on it. This is a Rococo design, so it's going to be in the first half of our time period, pre-1750. This is a tea chest where you would store your tea. Tea's expensive. You don't just leave it laying around in a drawer, in a box someplace. Nope, it's got its own expensive tea chest, and it's locked. Look, it's got a little keyhole and everything. Now, you would lock up your tea so that your servants wouldn't take tea from the chest. You know that, I mean, think about it today. You're not expecting someone to just run, someone to come in and take the whole tea caddy or tea chest away with them, which they could easily do that. But it's locked so that people wouldn't pilfer the tea out of it. Obviously, you could take the whole chest away, but then, someone would know that, they're taking off with the whole thing. But beautiful carving, beautiful fine carving on this, curly, probably maple here. Let me see, what does it say? Does it say it's... No, it doesn't say exactly what the wood is, but again, beautiful, beautiful piece. So we can see a major style shift between that last piece and this piece. This is 1790s, and all that Rococo goes away, all that fine carving goes away, and everything gets simple lines to it, straight lines to it. This is a tea chest with multiple tea caddies. So these two little items get put in there, and all this little fancy design, that's parquetry or those are little slivers of wood that make up the beautiful designs there. Just super fine piece, 1790s, British made.
That's beautiful.
It is. This is a pair of fairly early silver tea caddies. So we can have inexpensive little tea chests for, again, it's in silver, so it's not as easy to have these amazing, carved designs like the wood, but you can tell by the engraving on it that it's a little bit more Rococo-like. And we've got two chests here, one for black tea and one for green tea, and a little silver scoop. So most of the things here we're going to see are very, very high-end tea items.
So that scoop is just to scoop the tea out?
Yeah, it's just to scoop the tea out. Don't use it for anything else. You'll ruin everything. So we start to get into a little teapot. Early, tea's expensive early on, so you don't see giant teapots, and you can see even that early tea chest didn't hold a lot of tea. Tea was very expensive stuff. So we've got a silver teapot, elegant little design, and a very interesting bent wood carved handle, little wood top there. I don't know that this would hold very much. I'm thinking it's maximum two cups of tea, but they're probably using fairly small amounts. Now, this is silver. What happens when somebody doesn't have as much money? So we have almost exactly the same look and design, but this one's made out of pewter. So it's that next rung down. If you don't have enough money for silver, maybe you've got a brass pot, maybe you've got a copper pot, or next rung down, you've got pewter that you're using. Much easier to create. Pewter pours at about, depending on the alloy, 500 or 600 degrees. And so you can make molds and you can pour. It's much easier to create an item like this. Pewter's not as nice because it's easy to dent, and it doesn't polish up to this super bright. You know, it never gets much brighter than this, maybe for a few minutes, you know, and then it gets dull again and very easily damaged. But so this is that maybe three rungs down from, you know, silver and then brass, and then you're down into pewter items. One of the things that's driving tea and all these tea goods is the importation of fine porcelains out of Japan, China, other places in that part of the world. And this is about a mid-century teapot that is I'm not sure whether this one is actually made in, I think this one is not made in China, but imported into South Carolina from Great Britain. But we can see it's got the motifs of that sort of decoration, but it's not the super fine china that we see coming out of that part of the world. But this is what you would find in North America in that time period. We start to move into, and again, we'll probably cover teapots more in depth in a different time period, but we can see in a different live stream. But this is a late 18th century piece, maybe even early 19th century piece, and all those round designs have disappeared, and we have a lot of these straight-sided teapots. Again, a pretty fancy handle on it with how to get the bent wood like that, carve it all up and make it nice and smooth. This one is made here in North America. So again, we still have some very, very fine craftsmen in this time period. North America isn't just a complete backwater of craftsmanship. While some of the very finest things would be coming out of France and out of Great Britain, we still have some very fine makers here in North America. So here's a whole service of pieces. So tea kettles, larger teapots. We have a sugar pot that matches it and a creamer that matches it. We want everything to be, kind of fancy and all matched together. So we have this beautiful set. And you think one little piece is expensive. Well, what happens when we have a half a dozen, pieces that all match? Check out that snake handle with the little, curvy tail at the bottom. I look at a lot of these pieces and say, now, how much would it cost for me to find something like this today?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have something to say?
Well, there's some questions stacking up.
Yeah,
maybe I can burn through some.
Yeah, there you go.
These are from the chat right now. Mm-hmm. When do people switch to coffee?
There's a big coffees here all during this time period. Tea, coffee, chocolate are kind of treated very similarly in the middle of the 18th century. But tea gets driven out because of the Tea Party and the tax on tea, and that is a thing that's going on. There are references in multiple works where, say, something like Nicholas Creswell, and he's saying, oh gosh, people won't drink tea because it's one of those sort of political things going on there during the Revolutionary War. So coffee does really take over a good bit here in North America because of the Revolutionary War and the little political linkage there is to tea.
So people are wondering about if pewter was so popular, if you couldn't afford finer metals, what's going on with the lead content in pewter, and are people getting sick?
It can take a lot of lead before you know what's really going on. So they knew that lead was bad for you, but they were still putting it in a lot of things. There was still makeup that had lead in it. They were still adulterating different kinds of food with lead. They might put sugar of lead in drinks, and there's pewter there with different levels of you have lead in it. There's inexpensive pewter with more lead, and fine Britannia metal with almost no lead in it in the time period. Depends on how much a piece was kind of worth and what the maker was doing. Was it that poisonous in its form? If a pewter piece in a time period that might even have some lead in it, if it was polished well, then it's likely that not a lot of lead is going into whatever's being put in it. If the item is very acidic, well, then it will definitely start to get lead into it, and you have to be careful with that sort of thing. And if it isn't cleaned well and it oxidizes, yeah, you're going to get some of that lead that's more soluble in different liquids or different kinds of food. So it really depends what you're drinking, or out of it or eating out of it. And they used a lot of pewter that had some kinds of lead in it, and it affects you, in such a long time period that you might not know that it was really hurting you.
Would it be common for people to have a, quote, good tea set for company or higher end meals, celebrations, that sort of thing?
You betcha.
Okay.
Very much so. So depending on the economic level of the household, you would have whole rooms set aside where only the best guests go in, and it's got the fine services. And then for normal guests, you might eat in the kitchen or some other room, and you're going to use a different level of item. That's very typical all through the 17th century, 18th century, 19th century time period.
Would you be interested in doing a video on brass work?
Oh yeah. Brass work is great, and there's some amazing pieces that are made out of brass. So hopefully sometime we'll be able to do that.
And when did they start serving ginger teas?
Ginger teas. So what we have here are not teas, but tisanes, or however you say that, herbal teas. They're kind of in a totally different class, and they're not probably even called so much teas here in the 18th century. They are referenced in multiple works, and a lot of times they're sort of talked about in a medicinal sense. So they wouldn't even think of it as a tea, but just an infusion. So it's happening, but it's not really kind of in the same plane as tea.
Okay, and now I've got some questions from Super Chat, or at least statements on Super Chats. Speaking of style, Tony, loved the Poe reading. I had not read that particular one, so that made it better, not knowing what was coming. Thank you. I see Dead Llamas. This is in Super Chat. Afternoon, John and crew. Was wondering if you guys had any old-timey tea bricks to show off. Always liked the designs they stamp on them. Hello from Minnesota.
We used to have brick tea. It's been a long time. The problem with brick tea is it's not very 18th century. Almost all the tea that we know of happening in the 18th century is happening as loose tea and not as in its brick form. Brick form tea was likely happening again, like in China, but it wasn't really being imported. At least as far as I know, the references that we've seen really kind of start to come in the 19th century. So, I don't have any brick tea, but it is very interesting stuff.
Would children be drinking tea from a young age?
Really good question, and it's more likely they'd be drinking small beer. I know, sounds funny, but tea's an inexpensive drink, and it's likely it was just for adults until much later.
Did colonials drink pine needle tea?
Yeah, there are different things that people would use as substitutes for tea. Again, it's expensive, so what am I going to use to give me a tea-like flavor? Just like they would have imitation coffees, because coffee was expensive, so they might use something like burnt toast or grains that they would cook over the fire like you would do coffee beans and get that kind of bitter flavor. There were things that they were doing with teas, making infusions of tea-like items.
Max Cool is in Super Chat. John, can you tell us about the Teapot Dome scandal? I kid, please don't. Cool Friday topic. Aaron Howitt, I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Great topic. And that was in Super Chat as well. And I have one more that I'm scanning up to grab, and then we can move on to some more photos. This one's from Jack. Saw an interesting 300-year-old colonial times cocktail to try in the tavern, the Rattle Skull. Heard of it? Great for fall, and it uses nutmeg. Yeah, I have heard of the Rattle Skull, and we have thought about trying it, but I can't find actual historical references to it. I see this in modern books, and they say it's from the time period, but I can't find a reference in the time period, and I'm a little slow to try those. So maybe we'll try it anyways.
That is a very tricky thing. So when you look at references, 19th century, especially in the late 19th century, when there's a colonial revival, and we get a lot of authors that are writing about the colonial time period, and all the way through the 20th century, we get books that talk about old-timey America, and they have, fun stories. The problem is tracking those down into the 18th century. Some of them are just folklore, and they aren't necessarily true. So as we research and try to dig into the 18th century, we have to pull those out and question them until we really dig down and find the actual 18th century reference.
A great example of that now is if you get online and you type in cherry bounce, you're going to find 30 blogs to tell you that it was George Washington's favorite drink, and he had it all the time, and he had it every day. When you actually look, I contacted Mount Vernon about it. We've got some friends there, and they're like, yeah, I guess there's a reference to it, but I don't think there was anything that he actually had off, and couldn't tell you if he drank it personally at all.
Yeah. And if anybody's going to know, it's the folks who spend all their time researching.
So, yeah, it is referenced there. Obviously, he drank it, once or twice, but he drank it daily. Nobody can actually say that. So, all right, John.
Okay, let's jump back in.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Everyone make sure to hit the like button. Super helpful with the algorithm, and we really appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, 3 more super chats just popped in. Might as well knock them out. John Talley, why was tea so expensive back then?
Well, it's coming from a long way away. It's an imported product all the way from China, India, so it's expensive, and there's no better answer than that.
Top Hat is in Super Chat. Did the people of the 18th century blend teas into different flavor profiles, or was the tea everyone drinking back then the same type of tea?
There's, as far as I can tell, not a lot of tea blending. There certainly are teas that are coming out as specific types from different regions and different processing types. So green tea, black tea, oolong tea, they're processed in all these different and interesting kind of ways. Sort of, some of them are smoked, some of them are fermented, some of them are rolled up in a certain kind of way, like gunpowder tea. But are they taking them and mixing the flavors? No, not really, as far as I can tell. Most of the time it's, there's the tea, this is, this out of this great big batch. Not really a blending or adding flavors to them as far as I can tell.
Robert Green is in Super Chat. Were tea bags a thing in the 1700s?
There are some references to using, cloth, pouches, and whatnot to do that sort of thing. And we will see as we go into this next slide, there are tea strainers and teaspoons and different things to keep that tea, we're corralled so you can get it out of there.
All right, and then Alexander, are there any accounts that tea was used as currency similar to whiskey?
It's undoubtedly true that it was used in something like that, but in any great, to any great extent, I doubt it.
All right. Man, they just keep rolling in, don't they? I see the llamas again. Thanks for the answer. Didn't know it was later product. One last question from me. Would you know the rough monetary value of tea dumped into the Boston Harbor?
The Boston Tea Party Ships and Museum would have a much better idea about that particular. I don't have that off the top of my head. Great little museum there. Ships you can tour that are like the ships in the time period. Just a fun museum to visit there at Boston. But I don't have that answer, but you can bet that it would be a very large sum if we adjusted it for modern time period.
The Real DJ in Super Chat, are there any references to tea as among Native Americans?
They're going to be doing infusions, not tea as, again, these are herbal type of infusions of different, herbs and barks and whatnot. Again, using it very medicinally in a lot of cases, very common. But tea, yeah, so we got to kind of separate those two things out. In the time period, those herbal infusions are very, very different from what we call, tea today.
And again, folks, that is the Boston Tea Party Ships Museum.
There we go.
And you can go find that online. They've got a wonderful website.
Yeah.
It's a great place to go, and we like them a lot.
Yep.
All right, John, let's go.
Okay,
Pictures.
here we go. Let's do it. There's a tea strainer on one side, so that it fits right over your teapot, and put the tea in there and pour water over it. And we have the like a slotted spoon over on the other side, so we can strain out the tea. And both of these are, again, high-end pieces, silver, both made in America or in North America at the time period. These are both fairly early to mid 18th century pieces. So we move into late 18th century, early 19th century, and these were picked out because they all have pineapples on the top of the lid. So a whole set engraved, this neat swoopy kind of pattern, that tea thing going on there. We can see the tea caddy all the way on the right. Again, with the little keyhole, tea's still expensive enough that you don't want your servants kind of making off with a teaspoon of your tea while nobody's paying attention. And the servants many times would resell the tea. It's been used once. They would dry the leaves out, maybe dye them a little bit, and then sell them off like it was, good fresh tea. Yeah, it's happening in the time
That
period.
sounds just they're nice people.
Oh, hey, well, they're just trying to make a buck.
John, do you hold your pinky finger up when you drink nice tea?
No. What do you mean nice tea?
I mean, just like really nice tea.
Nice tea.
Not like run-of-the-mill tea.
What's this nice tea you speak of?
You talk
All
about
the
special
tea.
teas a lot. You're like, oh man, I really like that tea.
Well, then I don't drink bad tea.
Do you ever hold your pinky finger up?
No.
Okay. It was a question in the chat.
Okay. I just wondered. I mean, it seemed like a strange one. More tea caddies. You want to hold lots of nice tea. These are the middle one there is a sugar box, and then the two tea caddies on either side. This is North American silver service. Let's see, this is from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Now, this is the stuff, when I see it, it's just like, whoa. You can bet this would be super expensive stuff in the time period. This kind of work, very intricate, hard to produce. I mean, even looking at the carving of the handle on the teapot, the bird we got on the top of it, it's one thing to engrave silver. It's another to make it, come out at you like this.
Embossed.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, this is from 1761, 1762, New York silversmith Myers, and just gorgeous. And sugar tongs. Sugar tongs are one of those items that they're like millions of sugar tongs from the 18th century. You know, everything else disappears. We still have the sugar tongs, but these pieces are just amazing. It's not just silver, you know, teapots and creamers, but it brings in this whole level of furniture. So you have just tea tables, and this is from that same sort of 1750-ish time frame, where it's just a table made for tea service. Now, like Joe Perro was saying, you know, if you've got scrolls on your chair, you probably have a little bit too much money. Well, if you have a table that's just for tea, I mean, come on, people. Obviously, this is a little higher end than, you know, your three-legged stool, obviously.
That's the tea table.
Yeah, well, a tea table, yes. You have tea trays. So a silver tea tray and a hot water urn for either tea or, you know, for using hot water in some other way. I don't know how you keep enough hot water in that thing, and you'd think the silver would probably suck all the heat out of it really fast. But they probably didn't care. It's like they spent $1 trillion on this thing, and they don't care about whether it works really good. Does it look expensive? You know, but wow, the silver things being made in this time period just always take me aback. Another tea urn item here, and we are definitely, you know, you can definitely tell on that side, the side surface there, all that fluted ware. Certainly that same kind of later time period, probably, you know, 1790s into 1810, and this urn here that we see is a Paul Revere urn. So made by the famous Paul Revere, 1791, made in Boston.
Real quick, somebody asked where they could get a mug like yours.
Ooh.
I'm dropping a link right now that has all of the mugs on our website.
Yeah.
If you click on the one that looks like John's, there are several different colors, but there are lots of mugs on there. So just
Yeah, Nutmeg Tavern mugs, or some of them are Nutmeg Trader mugs.
yeah, they're all on the same page, I
Yeah.
believe, and you just kind of click through to see what color and
Needs more
stamp
nutmeg
off.
mug
Yeah,
too. Yeah, there's
yep.
lots of fun Nutmeg Tavern mugs.
You go buy mugs now, and if you want to get mugs in time for Christmas to put in somebody's stocking, right now is a great time to buy them.
And they're good for tea.
And coffee.
Oh, I guess you can probably put coffee in it.
I've never
You're
put
not going
tea
to
in my
break
mug.
one. You're not going to break one by putting coffee in it, I suppose. So this is a little piece that talks about making tea. And this is from Digby. It's early. This is 17th century. So he said we let the hot water remain too long soaking upon the tea, which makes it extract into itself the earthy parts of the herb. The water is to remain upon it not longer than whiles you can say the, I don't know what that is, psalm, very leisurely. So like, you know, say a little, you know, psalm out of the Bible, or maybe a poem or something like that. Then pour it upon sugar or sugar and eggs. I don't know, eggs in my tea. Thus you have the spiritual parts of the tea, which is much more active, penetrative, and friendly to nature. You may from this regard take it a little more of the herb, about a dram of tea, which will serve for a pint of water, and which makes 3 ordinary draughts, or draughts. Yeah, so recipes for making tea. We don't think too much about, you know, a recipe, but they do have tea caudles. So this idea of eggs in your tea, this is a tea caudle, which would be something you would make for somebody who was maybe sick. So it's got eggs and it might have milk, and maybe you caudle it with tea so that it would sort of turn into curds or curdy kind of things.
There were eggs and flip.
Yeah,
And
eggs
that
and
was really
flip.
good.
Yeah.
Heather Torrey sends in a super chat with no comments.
Thank you, Heather.
Ready?
So Here's a 1750 little toy, little miniature of a whole tea operation going on there. We can see the tea set, the table set with, plates and saucers and cups and a bowl and teapot and even the little dog and people, sitting around having tea. We have a painting of a whole tea service. So here's our tea tray. We have our ceramic teapot and all the accessories, sugar lumps in there. And look at those sugar lumps. Those sugar lumps come off of a cone of sugar. They just kind of crunch it up into these rough little chunks of sugar. It isn't granulated and it isn't in cubes. It's in this sort of handmade cube form. We have silver teaspoons and notice there are no handles on these little teacups. A lot of teacups in that time period didn't have handles. They're all a matching design. We have something like toast or crumpets or some kind of buttered, it makes me hungry, like I want to go home and eat that right now. Even that larger bowl there on the side, I'm not sure whether that's just to, put the dirty things that you want to take away or exactly what's going on there. And of course, sugar tongs.
That's a table all for tea, man.
Yeah, it's all set up. Another little tea thing going on here. She's got her teapot. She's drinking her tea out of the saucer. Yes, that's the thing.
So really, is this much different, the tea table, than having like a bar area in your home?
Maybe, maybe a similar kind of idea that you would have this set aside for this whole operation, and it's expensive, and it's one of those things you sort of do. This tea's not just, although almost all these images are sort of very high-end, rich people, it's not just being drunk by rich people, though. But here we get to see, someone's interior, and I mean, she's got a squirrel, and she's got a parrot, and a crazy cat that's on the table, which I would have.
Yeah.
No cats on the table in my house.
No. And no cats around the parrot.
No.
That sounds terrible.
No. So maybe more down into a servant of the house here. She's got a plainer ceramic teapot. Nice, lots of steam there. Great job by the artist. And stirring her tea, getting ready to drink it. We don't have a matching set here, so the teapot and the teacup, although that's a pretty good size teacup. Sort of a party. This is probably later on in the time period, 1790s would be my guess by the artwork and the dress, maybe 1780s. We see that urn that we saw earlier, it's a little one of those little upright teapots. Again, cups, no handles, and it's again the only thing that's happening here at the table. It's probably just the tea. Let's all go into the tea corner and have tea. Much later, we're getting into 1810, possibly even 1820, but probably more like 1805, 1810. And we have a teacup with the handle. We have the sugar tongs. We have that classic little upright teapot style. And, again, a household where somebody's just, I'm just going to have my tea. A little bit earlier, and I believe this is probably more European. Let me check. The way that tea kettle is on the little brazier on the floor says to me that it's likely more European, not necessarily British. And this is in the Rijksmuseum, so it's probably Dutch. And we have it says it's early 19th century, although it's depicting a 18th century clothing here. So I'm not sure about exactly where I would nail this down in date, but we get to see that little brazier where it's heating that water up and then he can pour it into the little teapot, make the tea, and then pour it into the cup. It's got to be complicated.
I think it's funny that all these folks are drinking this by themselves in a lot of these images, but still they're going through the whole process. They still have all the tools. Usually when I'm doing things by myself, I kind of like make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, let's just slam it together. Yeah. And I think this one's the last one. Next one. There you go. Just to get fancy, like some teapots are crazy. It's got this sea serpent sucked on there for a handle. And what is it? It's a pineapple. It's a giant pineapple teapot from 1750s to 1770s. So yeah, pineapples are popular. Sure.
Is that it?
Yeah. That's making tea. It's complicated. It's a whole operation. You can't just, make tea in any old thing. You got to have the tea kettle, you have the teapot, you have to have all these different things so that you can have. I'm never that fancy. Got a teapot, got a cup to drink it in.
All right, I've got some super chat that we got to catch up on real quick. John Talley, since tea was so expensive for people trying to grow their own tea, was it illegal, or would it just not grow here?
It is tricky to grow. There is, I think they experimented with an island out off the coast of North America, and I still think they're, you can get tea that's grown on that island. They tried to get it to grow either in the 18th century or but they didn't really have just tons of success with that. It really takes the right kind of environment, and we just don't really have it. So I don't know that it was illegal. It's just we don't have the right kind of climate for it.
Greg says that his 82-year-old mother still uses loose tea. She won't use tea bags in the house.
Oh yeah,
because they have plastic and have fungicide.
Yeah, there's all kinds of bleached paper, or there are reasons not to use tea bags, and so some of them, and you can hide low quality tea inside of a tea bag. So that's the other thing too. It's like, I would just kind of put the sweepings of the little bits. The loose tea is always the good stuff because you can see what's going on with it.
Aaron Howard in Super Chat, it looks like a lot of these urns are samovars?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, samovars.
Which often have tube inside for hot coals, so the water stays hot even when you refill it.
Makes complete sense.
Kimberly Cook, okay, there we go. I think the rich used to stick out their pinky while drinking because their cups were thinner, no handles, and they didn't want to burn their fingers.
So your pinky's okay, but the rest of your fingers are burnt? I don't know.
Any input on the fermentation process of teas? What's the benefit of just drying versus fermenting?
Well, it certainly brings out a whole different flavor profile. So the difference between a green tea and a black tea is that black tea has had this whole fermenting process, wilting. There's a lot of great, fun research to find out about what's really going on. It's a lot more complex than you would think. They're smoking and they're doing just crazy, amazing things with tea. So do some tea research. You'll find that it's a lot more complicated than you would expect.
Okay, so a search at the Boston Tea Party Ships.com stated the British East India Company reported the tea at a loss was $1.7 million modern value.
Okay, there we go. Not too cheap a loss.
Jeez.
I'm just saying.
Could have been worse.
Yeah, could have been worse. Could have been worse. The ships weren't as big as you might think. We think today we see container ships and they're just humongous. Their ships were, like the size of a semi-truck or something.
That pretty much catches us up, John. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we sign off?
Oh gosh. Stay tuned for a little bit more Joe Pera, and thank you so much for checking out well, I hadn't even didn't even remember that. Yeah, I had the reading of The House of Usher, so that's a fun little thing. I had a blast reading that. So check that out. This week I do not have the Patreon names because I got distracted somehow just at the wrong time. So we will have twice the number next week, but I'll read them really fast. But I just really want to, well, I just will. I just have to. But a super special thank you to the folks on Townsends Plus. And yeah, we're working on great new stuff there on Townsends Plus. Special thank you to all you folks on Patreon. Again, make sure to check out the new post on Patreon. All the folks that do we don't talk about it very often, but the membership on YouTube makes a big difference. So if you just want to help us that kind of way, that's just great. All you folks there in Super Chat, if you're interested in merch, again, a great way to help us be able to make more and more videos. So all these things make a massive difference, and it always surprises me. I'm always just humbled massively when I see, the number of views that our videos get watched all around the world. I'm always just taken aback by how much they go out and how many people react to them. So when you help us make videos, you're helping out people all over the place, see what's going on in the 18th century. So thank you guys so much for your incredible help in what we do. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Aaron. And I hope you folks have a tremendous weekend. Thanks for watching.